Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our pre-planting webinar for the 2021 season. This is the first of 4 of these webinars that we will be running this week and next week. Webinar recordings can be found at the Climate Corporation, so we are recording this session. If you missed something and you want to go back and listen, we will have it posted on our YouTube channel. Today's session is all about getting you ready to plant. The weather is turning warmer. I see fertilizer buggies starting to move around this area, and everyone's beginning to get ready for the new farming season. So before we get to our main stage of content this morning, let's take care of some housekeeping items. Phil, if you would go ahead and go to the next slide for me. We have a great agenda for you this morning. So we're going to get to introductions. We'll talk to you about some resources. We're going to remind you about some marketing programs that we have running out there, and then we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of the program, and that's getting you ready to plant. We'll go through some of those details, and then we're going to jump into the FieldView CAD app and show you step-by-step with a live demo what you need to do to get ready for planting. So next slide. So I mentioned the recordings that we're doing, and I just wanted to give you a screenshot. If you go to YouTube and search for the Climate Corporation, you will see that second bar there of recordings is all webinars. And so we have all of the 2020 webinars that we did last year up there. And as we refresh those for the 2021 season, we're replacing those with the newer version. So be sure to check those out on our YouTube channel. Next slide. The next thing that we want to get to is your questions. So we want you to be able to ask the questions that you have weighing on your minds this morning. And so there are 2 ways to do that. You can post them in the chat, or you can post them in the Q&A. Either way, you can post them to everyone on the call. You can post them to just me, the host, or you can post them to the panelists. And so I'll be keeping an eye on both the chat and the Q&A so that I can get your questions posed to the experts that we have here on the line this morning. And so with that, let's get to our experts here this morning. I'm Mindy McDermott. I'm your host, and you've probably heard me on some of these other webinars before, but we have 2 very special guests this morning, Tanya Cantwell and Phil Larson, both who are climate activation managers. And so as the spring season is ramping up, these folks are ramping up as well to get you ready for the spring planting season. Tanya is a very seasoned veteran. She has been in the seed and crop business for Bayer Monsanto in Iowa for 20 years. Her family farms, and she keeps very busy with that, as well as work-life balance with her tween and teen kids and all of their activities. Tanya, I can relate, and I only have a 13-year-old so far, so my 8-year-old's not quite there yet.
Sounds good.
And
thanks,
Phil,
Mindy. Good morning.
Yeah, I'll have a little break between the 2. Although she likes to tag on to anything she can with my older daughter. And so Phil is actually a new parent, and so he has a 6-month-old. Is that right, Phil?
Yeah, that's correct. 6 months.
So Phil is fully sleep deprived at this point, but he has worked for Climate for 3.5 years and spent 2.5 years in the customer success team in St. Louis, and is now a climate activation manager in Nebraska, covering the northeast part of the state. So Phil, what do you say? Let's kick this main stage event off this morning.
Sounds good. So the first thing we want to go through this morning with you guys is just make sure you understand our marketing programs and our kind of new pricing that we have around that. Kicked off in September of 2020, but that runs through to August 31st of 2021. So on September 1st, we did lower our price down to $99 per year from that $999. So really a great option to be able to, and a great opportunity to be able to use FieldView now at a $99 price rather than almost the $1,000 price that we had. But we also are running 2 great marketing programs currently, the Bayer Plus Rewards program and the Seed Loyalty programs. And those programs, by utilizing those, you can use FieldView for free for up to a year. For the Bayer Plus program, you just have to have a Bayer Plus account and go into that Bayer Plus account, navigate to the Bayer Plus dashboard, and there's an area in there that asks if you want to try FieldView free for a year. It'll give you a window to put in your FieldView email address. Once you put that in there and hit accept, it will actually link up to your FieldView account and give you a year for free. This can be a free year for anybody that's new, that's never used Plus, or if you are an active user, you can tag a year on to the end of your expiration date. So if you don't expire until, let's say, August of this year and you go and connect it, it will actually connect you all the way up with Plus till August of 2022. So make sure if you have a Bayer Plus account and you haven't utilized this option yet, that you go in and you connect those. Currently, there's no dollar amount associated with that. You just literally have to have a Bayer Plus account and a FieldView account, obviously, and connect them up. The other programs, the Seed Loyalty Program, again, free year by utilizing this program. If you have purchased 100 units of Bayer branded seed in 2020, then you can get it free for a year. And this is brand specific. So it either has to be 100 units of Asgrow to Calb combined, 100 units of channel, or 100 units of your local regional brand. So they can't be added together. You know, if you had channel and DeKalb added together over 100, that's not going to work. We have to have 100 units of a specific brand to make that option work. So those are two great options. With the Seed Loyalty, you use your Tech ID as a promo code when you go through the checkout process, or your FieldView dealer should be able to help you out get that one activated as well. So make sure you're utilizing those if those are options to you, and not paying the $99 when that time comes, if you have those marketing programs available to you. Next, we're going to jump into some resources and kind of how you guys can either help yourselves or kind of the help that we can help provide you guys to make things easy. The first thing I kind of want to call out, and it's a great option, if you have an iPad or your iPad in front of you, or when you have time, if you go to Safari on your iPad and you navigate to support.climate.com, our Knowledge Center website, and you select that share button in the top right-hand corner, what that can do is give you the option to add basically what looks like an app. It's more of just a shortcut, but comes off looking like an app on your home screen of your iPad, to be able to tap that and jump straight into the Knowledge Center without having to worry about when the time comes and you're searching for something, remembering what that website is. So it's a great quick tool to be able to jump in and have on your iPad, access the Knowledge Center, to be able to search for all your climate questions in there. When you come into the Knowledge Center, then at that point, there's a search bar at the top that is basically works just like Google. You can put in any word in there. You can put in any series of words, and then that will scour all of our articles that we have and return the results. That's going to help benefit you from your search. So I use Knowledge Center pretty much multiple times on a daily basis for people when they ask questions. It has all the information that we need in there. At the top, there's relevant videos. Mindy has those changed out on a seasonal basis. So as we're coming into planting and spraying, you'll see planting and spraying videos. If we're coming into harvest, you'll see relevant combine setup videos or relevant harvest videos that are going to help us in those seasons. We have some documents and videos arranged by category, so you can click on the categories as well there in the middle under the Knowledge Center topics, and that'll pull up the relevant information based under those categories. And then seasonally relevant documents at the bottom. So the suggested articles that we know are the most utilized and most clicked on per season. The Knowledge Center's been around for a couple of years, so we know which ones are accessed the most, and those are the ones that are going to kind of be pinned on the bottom there of, hey, we know these are what you're coming here to look for. Here's a quick access. Click on the more info and jump right into those areas to be able to find the information that you need. The other thing that we want to call out today too is just our on-farm FieldView help. So we do have a group of what we call our climate activation specialists. So this is a group of contractors that we have all across the country. There's 140 of them. People like myself and Tanya manage this group. And what the climate activation specialists can do is they can be an on-farm support, come out, help set up your account, help install drives, adapter harnesses if they're needed, help get your cab app up and running, help collecting data from your monitors that you might have to pull through data inbox. Then we, helping import all that data, bringing in your harvest planting application. If you're new to FieldView and you don't have any data in yet, or you don't really have anything up and running in your account, they're a great resource to be able to come out, sit down with you for an hour or two, walk through the things that we need to get done. That way, when it's time to hit the field, you're going to be ready to roll, and they can go through some examples of like, hey, here's what it's going to look like, and setting everything up for you. So I highly recommend if you are new, or even if you're not new and you just want some help getting things set up, that you reach out to your local climate rep and have them kind of help connect you with these climate activation specialists. It's a free of charge service. It doesn't cost anything. It's just part of your subscription of coming out, or part of your subscription of having FieldView for them to come out and help out, get you going and make sure you have everything that you need to fully utilize the product to its full potential. So let's get into some slides here, talking more about, hey, what are the things we need to be thinking about as we get ready for planting here? For most of the country, that's, we're a little over probably a month away in that area as the weather starts getting nicer here. So, and I know some areas of the country, we're down south, we're rolling already, but what are the things we need to be thinking about over the next couple of weeks to make sure, hey, I'm ready to go with my FieldView and my account, so I'm ready to roll when it's time for planners to get going. The first thing that we need to check on is our updates on our apps. FieldView Cab, most importantly, is the number one thing you're going to want to check and make sure that you're updating. If you haven't updated your Cab app in a while, or just keeping an eye on when those updates come out, to make sure that you have the latest and greatest. If there's any bugs or anything from previous versions that we have, those will be ironed out as updates start coming out. So we want to make sure you're updating those. The Black app as well, the climate full app, the black and orange one. So that one won't have as many updates in season as the Cab app, but always important to keep that updated as well, because any update coming out in that app is just going to be added features and functionality usually, and it's going to be something that we're going to want to make sure that we have updated. The other thing you might want to do is check with your equipment dealer for any in-cab displays for updates. If you're newer and you've never used FieldView before, there is a chance that if you're trying to use Cab app, there could be a certain version your display might need to be on for Cab app to function properly. So make sure you're checking on that. Working with your local climate rep again to make sure that you have the most recent versions and the right versions of all of that to make sure everything's going to work properly. The other thing that we want to make sure and have is our equipment measurements. So when we're thinking about going into the Cab app, which we'll go through here in a live demo, Tanya will touch on here in a little bit, is our equipment measurements. But knowing equipment measurements is going to be important to make sure that we're mapping properly. When you're entering your equipment in the Cab app, all that information that it's put in determines exactly how the map gets created when you're planting or when you're spraying. Anything that could be off a little bit, as far as like GPS location on the piece of equipment, can alter where the map is going and alter accuracy. So we want to make sure that we know our equipment measurements. A lot of these I know I've run across are stored in the monitors themselves. So you might already have the equipment measurements that are going to be called for in the Cab app in your monitor, John Deere, Case Monitor, whichever company you may be using there. You might already have those in there just to be able to pull up. Adding hybrids, and Tanya will touch on this a little bit in the live demo portion, but this is another thing that's important. to make sure to keep accuracy of data is loading in your hybrids that you're going to be using for the upcoming season. My recommendation would be, if you have a list of old hybrids and you've been using FieldView in the past, for the past couple of years, that you go in and clear out any hybrids that you know for sure you're not going to be using, and only keeping ones that you might have rollover from last year in there, and then adding any new ones that that you might be bringing on the farm this year. There's a couple different ways of adding hybrids, and the first way is you can go in and, kind of as this little video thing is shown here on the side, is you can go in and type the hybrid name in, and it will start appearing in the search bar, and you can add it in that way. The other way is to use the scan bag tag, which is currently being shown here, is go out and actually scan the seed bags, and it'll search for that hybrid and automatically add it in. The key thing to note here on the scan bag tag feature is that when you go to look at and put the scan bag tag on the tag itself, is the QR code is not what we're looking at. That scan bag tag actually is pulling the hybrid name, and it's searching for that hybrid name. So in this case, that channel, that 209-15, that's what it's actually reading. So it actually uses the technology to look for the boldest, largest print, which is always going to be the hybrid name on that tag. So that's what it's searching for. If you're using that feature, make sure we're aiming it at the bag tag, the hybrid name on the bag tag, not that QR code. But a great way to get it in there efficiently, a great way to make sure it's typed in exactly how Climate has the name in there, so it doesn't end up as a custom hybrid. So a really good feature to be able to use quickly to have accurate naming of your hybrids in there. The other thing you can do too is to go the next step is go in and add in the hybrids by field. So you can go into the Fields tab on the Cab app. It's one of the 6 tabs on the home screen, and it'll bring you to what this image looks like here on the right, and then you can select your field. If you know which hybrid or maybe 2 hybrids that might be planted on a field, you can actually assign it to that field. That way, when you go into the Cab app and you pull into that field, you make that field active and get ready to start planting. When you go to tap to add the hybrid, that hybrid or 2 hybrids is going to appear right on top of the list. There's nothing to go search for. You'll see which one that you need to pick. You can pick it and off you go. This saves a lot of time. And just, again, make sure data accuracy and you have the right hybrid name is going to be in there. And if you don't do this and you just do the previous step that I talked about, you're just going to have your full list of hybrids that you've entered in that you're going to have across your operation. So you might have to sift through a little bit depending on how many hybrids you're going to be using. So this is just another step to get a little bit more specific and just save a little bit of extra time of searching once you hit that field. Next thing we want to touch on is your equipment compatible? So talking about, what if you're using FieldView, are we using it in the cab, using the Cab app, or are we going to have to be using data inbox and offloading data from the OEM monitor? So the first thing kind of want to touch on, just when we look at FieldView drive compatibility, and if we're going to be able to use the FieldView drive in the Cab app in the cab of the tractor or sprayer, is the things we look at in Climate and how we determine compatibility. So we look at our rate control system, the GPS receiver, and the display, and then we kind of see how all those things are connected together to kind of determine compatibility. So a lot of times, sometimes it doesn't really matter that the iron that these particular features are on. It just kind of matters that we have compatibility with the display, the receiver, and rate control system, and then they're connected in a way that we already have compatibility for. So that's kind of what we look at, and when we're looking at compatibility. A really great resource if you're not sure about your compatibility is going back to that knowledge center that I kind of referenced earlier. And there's down at the bottom under suggested articles, there's a Climate FieldView Drive Machine Compatibility Guide. So if we click on that, we can really then get into determining, hey, is my equipment compatible for what I have? I've never ran it before, so I need to check on it. This is where you would want to go. Once you click on that, it takes you to this page, and this page offers a ton of information. We have different PDF guides for different seasons. So we have our planning and seeding compatibility guides. We have an application compatibility guide and a harvest compatibility guide that has all this different information. We have a list of all our FieldView Drive adapter harnesses. And we also have a compatibility checker that can be accessed in here as well. So if you see on that bottom there in that red box, it says utilize our new compatibility checker to determine if you need an adapter harness, or it'll tell you, hey, we might not be compatible for your specific setup. You might be data inbox, which means pulling the data off the monitor and loading through data inbox. So all that information can be found here. Again, I would, if you're not sure, reach out to your local resources and make sure that you're working with them to make sure that, hey, we're putting in the right things. If anything gets a little bit confusing, we can know for sure whether you're compatible or not by helping you out. Next thing I want to jump into here is a little bit of compatibility updates. So talking about some new things that we have coming that we haven't had or didn't have in spring 2020. So the first thing off the top is a John Deere SeedStar 4HP. So anybody who might be running a John Deere, one of the new John Deere planters with a 4HP rate controller, we do have a public beta version in the works that we're hoping will be released sometime soon here, and hopefully before most of the country gets planting. If that's something that you've been waiting for, if you have 4HP on your planter, be on the lookout for version updates. Again, this is where it's going to be important to stay up to date on your cab app versions, to keep an eye out for those. If you have any more questions on that one, again, I would say reach out to your local rep. They might be able to provide a little bit more information, but we're hoping that public beta version will be coming out here pretty soon. We also have two other betas. They're more of a private beta. So if you're running a Kinsey Ag Leader with the PMM is the Ag Leader planning module, work with your local rep. Same thing on the Trimble Field IQ planning rate controllers. So if you're using those, there may be some opportunity, but you'll need to work with your local reps to see if the private beta is something that might suit you on an individual basis. So the other thing is Case 2000 series planter using the basic layer. So if anybody has a Case 2000 series planter, in the past that there is a adapter harness that was sold through Case that would have to be used to map on climate using the cab app. And this update that hopefully will be coming on the same update as that John Deere SeedStar 4HP would allow us to just map basic layers without having to buy that DIA kit, is what it's called, from Case to make it work. So I got a couple slides on that here, in a couple slides that we'll see. Same thing on so Case 2000 series planters with third-party GPS. So we have something in the works to make that compatible as well. And then the last thing here, CNH Pro 1200 and IntelliView 12 support. So those new Case New Holland monitors that will have a new adapter harness, and there's a slide that I'll touch more on that here in a second. So SeedStar 4HP, just want to make sure that we're understanding terminology here, because it does get a little bit confusing, because John Deere's new display is the Gen 4 and the SeedStar 4HP is the rate controller. The 4HP is coming in that update, hopefully coming soon in that update that I mentioned. The John Deere Gen 4 display is something that we are already compatible with. So that's just their new display that they've had out for the last couple of years. But we have harnesses and we have compatibility with that display and always have. But just so we understand the difference, if you have a Gen 4 monitor but not a 4 HP, you're probably already compatible. If you have a Gen 4 and a 4 HP, we'll probably need to wait for that update to get it working. This is just a quick shot of, hey, here's the results. That on the right, that map is a planting map from a John Deere monitor or from a John Deere 4 HP planter. And it matches, it kind of looks a little goofy, but it looks exactly what it would look like in Operations Center. If you look at the legend on the right there, it's just a very tight legend. So that's why there's a little bit of variability, or what seems to be variability in that picture. But we are having great results with people who have already been running this on a private beta down south. So we are feeling pretty good about the 4 HP and the results that we're getting early on. So if you are running that, hopefully you'll be seeing the same. 2000 series planner. So this is what I had mentioned, the basic mapping. So with the 2000 series, you actually, you can get more mapping such as downforce margin, singulation, spacing. Those are all categorized in the HD mapping, which is, you would still need that DIA kit that is sold from Case to get those maps. But if that's not, if you're not trying to get those maps in climate or not too worried about that, this new update would be coming would give us the basic layers, such as just the hybrid population, planner speed, planning date. So be able to have those basic maps that you would get from other planners that we would have with Case already, like the 1200 series. Case Pro 1200 and the New Holland IntelliView 12 display. So this is what I was mentioning earlier. There is a new kit, an adapter harness that would be coming if you have one of these monitors. Do not connect to the display itself. This new adapter kit that's in progress should get those that have this monitor or the New Holland 12 or the Case Pro 1200 working with the new adapter kit. So keep an eye out for that. Again, I would say make sure you're staying in touch with your local rep, or if you're not sure who that is, have your climate dealer or reach out and kind of get some more information on this, as this is coming here soon, and this is what's going to make that compatible, is this new kit. So the climate Case adapter kit that we have on the climate store would not work for these. That's Pro 600, Pro 700 only. Then the Map Anything kit. So this is just another great thing to call out this time of year. If you have equipment that doesn't have GPS on it and you've been wanting to map, whether it's a planner, whether it's a sprayer, whatever the case may be. As you can see, we actually hooked this Map Anything kit up on a four-wheeler before. I've seen people put them on side-by-sides to create maps, whether, if they're putting plots in. Basically, it's a GPS, it's a Garmin GPS globe, and that hooks into our drive. And from there, we just use the GPS to be able to create the map, and we input everything else. So we input whether it's the hybrid and what the population it's going down at, or if it's an application, we put in the rate and what the application name is. And then we just click start and take off, and it'll swath on and off if you're passing through on the field. So it's a great option. It's a $600 kit sold through Ag Express. So it's not, compared to the kit we used to offer was $1,200. So we got it down to half the price through Ag Express. Great option to be able to run the Map Anything. And if you have GPS already, and just the other stuff that you have isn't compatible, we might be able to run as an incompatible rate controller using the GPS you already own. So another good call out here, if this is something you have, or, if you're looking for to be able to map, or like I said, if you have compatible GPS, this is where a climate activation specialist would be a great help to come out and make sure you get set up and know how to use. The last thing I want to call out, and then we'll jump into a little bit of the live demo, is our FieldView support team. So support@climate.com, that email at the bottom, and that number 888-924-7475. Those are going to be great resources to you as well to be able to call in or send an email down to be able to help get any answers that you might need. Good things to know if you are calling them, though. Know the email on your account. If it's about a specific field or if it's about compatibility, make sure that you know what, the equipment that you have as far as what your display is, what your rate controller is, and what the GPS would be if we're trying to figure out if something's compatible. But that's a great resource team as well down there in St. Louis to call down and be able to run through things. If you just want a quick answer, I would suggest calling over emailing. You're going to get a much quicker response, obviously. During busy season, that email piles up and it's hard to get to with how the phones ring during that time of the year. So the support team down there trying to monitor both of those, the phone line's going to come first. So I would say call the phone line first if it's something urgent and you need an answer. So now we're going to jump over to the planting setup demo. Tanya is going to show us a little bit. But before we get into that, Mindy, did we have any questions come through?
We sure did. Tanya, I passed you the ball, so you can share your screen anytime while we take a couple questions. So the first question is, I hear you talking about the climate activation managers and getting a climate activation specialist out on my farm. So how do I get connected with my local activation manager for my area? What's the best way to find out who that is?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you're not sure, and I would say if you are somebody that works or buys Bayer branded seed, your field sales seed rep should know or will know and be able to get you in touch with them right away. The other thing is your FieldView dealer should know who they are. Reach out to them and they can get you in touch. Or if none of that works, I would say call our 888 line as well. And our support team will know who covers what area, and they can get you in touch with the climate activation manager, and they can be able to help you out, get that activation specialist set up on farm.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And so you covered this a little bit, but I want to highlight it a little bit more so folks know the difference, and Tanya can address this as well. But when we were adding hybrids, why do I need to add hybrids if FieldView already has the hybrid that I'm using in their list?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't add the hybrid into your own list, what's going to happen is you're going to go to the field and it's going to say tap to add hybrid, and you're going to tap to add a hybrid, and you're not going to have any in your own personal list. So then it's going to jump you into add hybrid, and you're going to have to start typing that out while you're sitting in the planter, trying to find the hybrid that you have that you want to use. It's for me and for you guys, it would be a time saving element. Getting it added in there correctly is also going to help out if you have different operators across the farm. If different people are jumping in the planters, that you already have that pre-built list and they know to select the hybrids that are already in there, then we're going to have just better data accuracy. That way somebody's not going in and just adding a new hybrid every time they're hitting a different field, when that hybrid may already be in the list. Otherwise, we're going to have some cleanup probably on the back end after planting to get everything to match up correctly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Tanya, we will kick things over to you to show us what some of these things look like in the actual app.
Excellent. Mindy, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can. We've got your FieldView app showing, and you're set to go.
That sounds great. So good morning, everybody. If you do have your iPad handy and you want to follow along on some of these click-throughs, feel free to do that. We're going to do a little bit of work on our iPad to kind of review everything that Phil has shared with us. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is go into my settings, and I'm going to go into General and then I'm going to click on About, and that's going to show you what iOS version that you're on. And so right now the iOS version is 14.4. You will see as the seasons progress, both spring and harvest, that we will provide any recommendations as to which software version you should be on. But that's the first thing that you're going to want to check is both your iOS or your iPad version. And then we're also going to want to confirm our CAB app. So I'm going to jump now into CAB app, which is the white app. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on Help. So we're going to move around these 6 tiles that are on our home screen. So a couple of things I'm going to first check on the Help button. First, I'm going to click at the bottom on the left, version info, and this is going to tell me what version of CAB app I'm already on. So we do expect, we had a release last week that we've paused. We do expect the next version to be released soon, and that will include some of that SeedStar 4HP compatibility that Phil reviewed. I'm also going to want to then click on the left there to my Cloud Sync status. This is just a good practice to make sure that all of the data that you may have had from Harvest or any applications, that everything is synced with the cloud. So you can go ahead and check that while you're on this Help button. In addition, if you're in a planter and having issues, or you're doing equipment setup and you can't remember how to call support, contact support is also accessible from the Help button. So there's that 888 number that Phil referenced, or you can go ahead and submit a ticket from this page. If you look to the bottom of my screen, in the background, my map was last on what was called Ken's Farm. So if I am having a problem with mapping or one of the field files related to Ken's Farm, it'll go ahead and attach that to this ticket when we submit the ticket from the CAB app. Additionally, you can also access different the help articles that are located on the Knowledge Center. So you can, from the CAB app, search the how-to figure out what the answers to your questions could be. So now I'm going to go back to my home, so the house in the top right, so my home screen. So I've already reviewed help. Now I'm going to go into my equipment. So as you'll see, I've already got some equipment from last season set up here. One thing that we would recommend is, if in the past, either fall or last planting, if you had challenges with some mapping, some maps not quite coming through the way that they were supposed to, I would go ahead and remove that piece of equipment and set it up again. But if you didn't have any issues and nothing has changed in your operation, your planning operation, then you can go ahead and leave everything as is. But we're going to go ahead and add equipment. So we're going to add our planter tractor. So all of the brands are listed, or you can do a custom if needed. So I'm going to go ahead and search for my planter tractor that I'm going to be using. So I click next. You are going to make sure you select the accurate steering type. So if it's a tractor, select that. And then you're going to want to identify this tractor. So I'm going to call this Demo Corn Planting. And I can't type today. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a name so I know what I'm looking for when I go to start planting corn. So this will take us into the setup page. Now, just to call out that a lot of the tractor models, there's a default measurement already here, but it is a really good practice to just double check some of these measurements, and you can use the diagram that's on the page to help you with those measurements. Probably one of the more important pieces on this page is the GPS location. So making sure that you have the accurate placement of your GPS will greatly affect if you have any issues when you go to map in field. So go ahead, if it's in the center of the tractor, you can leave it at 0, but you can obviously flip that to front or rear on the right side. But go ahead and double check all of your measurements and then click done. And so then I'll see my demo corn planting tractor is on my list of equipment. The next part of equipment that we're going to want to enter is our planter. So I'm going to go ahead and select planter. And obviously when you're adding equipment, this is where we would find sprayers, combines, all of the various equipment that you may need to set up. I'm also going to select a John Deere planter. Here's my planter model. And then you're going to want to select your frame style. So if you're in the office and you're not sure, or it's a new planter and you can't remember the setup, or someone's helping you out, you do have the ability to edit this later once we get into the equipment. But I'm going to go ahead and select my frame style. We enter in the number of rows and our spacing. Then you're going to want to select your hitch style. And then I will name that planter. Demo planter. Next. So this takes us into the planter setup. So again, here's where you can make some of those edits on frame and hitch style. And on this page is where we're going to select our planting display and our rate controller. So it is important that you have this information and you double check this for accuracy, because again, this will greatly determine our success with planting and drive compatibility. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got all kinds of planting displays here. I've got the John Deere, the 2630. And I'm going to verify that I'm just doing my John Deere SeedStar 2. Over here on the left side, you can verify all of the measurements of your planter. Now, a lot of this information you can find in your planter monitor. And as a best practice, we do recommend that you double check some of these measurements to make sure we have accurate planting when it's time to go to the field. And at this point, I'm going to click Done. And there I'll see I've got both my corn planter and my corn tractor are already set up. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go in and actually input the list of hybrids and varieties that we're planning to plant, as Phil talked about. So you find, again, I went back to my home button, the house, and the hybrids are under the settings tab. And as you look down on the left, here's where you'll see hybrids. And again, this is where we would recommend that if you have your list from your seed dealer right now, go ahead on a cold day, make sure you enter your list of hybrids and varieties, because that will save you time and ensure accuracy when it's time to go to the field. So I can remove everything from last year. And then I can start adding new hybrids. So again, you can either use on the top right, the scan bag tag. So you could take your iPad out to the shop and start scanning bag tags. Or if I have my list of hybrids next to me, I can start typing in my hybrid names. So there I've got 54, I want 5438. So now I see 5438 and I add that hybrid. I can also add in my soybean varieties, and that way I've created a master list for my operation. If you happen to have a hybrid that you can't find, for example, at the bottom of the list, I can add a custom hybrid. And then I'll add whether it's a corn hybrid or a soybean variety or any of the other crop options. And there I've created a custom number. So if you've got one that you can't find in our list, go ahead and create a custom hybrid. This is also the page that you can add seed treatments. And so if you are, or especially if you're going to do a test and you're tracking any seed treatments for corn or soybeans, this is where we can start creating that master list. So I'm going to go ahead and select Acceleron and say I'm going to do some quick roots this year. So I'm going to add that to my master list so I can select that treatment at planting time. So with that, I'm going to go back to my home page. Mindy, do we have any questions at this point?
I have some that I can ask, but we don't have any from our audience. So I say keep going if you have more information to share.
Okay. The last thing I do have to share was where we would go to make sure our Bluetooth is ready to pair with our drive. I'm not currently connected to the drive, but I can show where we go to do that as we're getting ready to go to the field. So I'm going to go back to the settings, the gear on my iPad. And if you're getting ready to go to the field or getting your drive installed and you want to make sure you have good connectivity as you're getting ready to go to the field, you want to go to your settings for your iPad and you're going to click on the Bluetooth button and you're going to ensure that that's on. One good practice that I personally use whenever I'm trying to connect to Bluetooth or maybe a device I haven't connected to in a while is first to toggle that button off and then back on. And then it will search for any new Bluetooth devices that are in the area. And so there you would see your drive pop up under either my devices or other devices if it's new. Then here's a key step. We're going to go back into the cab app. So our iPad is connected to the drive, but now we need to make sure that the drive is connected within cab app. So again, I was at home and I'm going to click settings. And then I'm going to click devices. And then here is where your new drive will show up and you will select pair new drive. And once that's connected, then you're ready to go to the field and start planting. So Mindy, I think we're ready for any questions that you have for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tanya, for going through all of that. And thanks, Phil, for getting us started. I'm sure that folks are anxious to get in the field. And so I do have a couple more questions that are frequently asked questions. And folks, if you do have some questions, now's the time to type those into the chat or even in the Q&A. So thank you very much for sending those in. So Tanya, when you were going through the equipment setup, I didn't see the Precision Planting 2020 monitors there. So can you explain how I complete setup for a 2020 monitor?
Sure. Is it okay if I ask Phil to jump in on that one, Mindy?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you are running 2020 monitor, there's actually no equipment setup that needs to be done within the cab app. We defer to all the settings that are already in the Precision 2020, whether you're running Gen 1, 2, or 3. You would just hook up to your Precision monitor using the cable, the iPad charging cable. And when you hook up to that, all the equipment settings that are in your 2020 will be transferred over to Climate, and then that is what will be used to create the mapping. So if you're seeing something off when you're mapping using your 2020, then we'll need to be making changes within the 2020 itself. So that's where those equipment setups would be. And so it is nice that if you do have the Precision setup, that you only have to have your equipment set up in there and no action needed on Climate's end in the equipment tab.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And here's another one. It's probably a tough one that folks may not have been thinking about as well, but either one of you can jump in on this one. So can I map a starter fertilizer while I'm mapping my planter passes with FieldView?
So yes, you can. I know, there is that ability to map the applications. Depending on your specific setup, I'd call out, I guess, but there is the ability to map applications while you are planting.
Perfect. Yeah. And if you want to do that, you can certainly go to Knowledge Center and you can type in, fertilizer, starter fertilizer, and it will help you find the documents that will walk you through that situation. So here's a question that has come in from one of our listeners this morning. So last fall, they could not get their iPad to Bluetooth with the FieldView drive. And so it would not paint. It would show the location of the equipment in the field. And so they could not get that to work. Can you walk us through maybe some of the troubleshooting steps there? And is there an app update that might have helped with that, or what are the steps, please?
Yeah, I would say if you were just pulling GPS and we weren't painting, that could be multiple things, I guess, that could lead to that. The one thing I guess I would suggest is rebuilding a new piece of equipment in the cab app. The exact same setup that you have, but sometimes actually just making a new piece of equipment in the cab app can help that. The other thing is that we would want to make sure we have the right rate controller selected. If you're getting GPS and it's following your piece of equipment through the field, but we're not seeing any map being created, that's because we're not reading the rate correctly. So either it's signaled wrong in the equipment or it's a rate controller maybe we're not compatible with, is another possibility. Or it's just a harness. Maybe we don't have the right harness in the cab hooked up to the drive to make sure that we're reading the rate control as well. I would say that'd be a great question or a great opportunity to reach out to some local representatives to have them come out and take a look real quick and just kind of assess what you have going on, or get on the phone with somebody as well and say, hey, here's my setup that I have. Got GPS last year but couldn't map. Can you help walk through some of the reasons why that might be? And it could, like I said, it could be a variation of different things, just depending on the brand of equipment that you have running.
Absolutely, and that's a great call to action right now before planting gets started, perhaps in your area. So, connect with your local climate activation manager, and they'll get someone out to the farm in that instance.
And if you're
so, another question that we have coming in.
One thing to add on that too, if you're getting GPS, there should be no reason that we shouldn't be able to get you mapping, even if for some reason you don't have a compatible rate controller. They could set you up as an incompatible rate controller and create the map as well. But if you're getting GPS, that's the first thing that we always need to create a map. But from there, we should be able to get you going.
Oh, perfect. That's a great add-in to that. Okay, so next question, and folks, these are great questions, and keep them coming. So this individual is looking at their equipment setup, and they have multiple equipment pieces in their duplicates of the same sprayers, the same liquid applicators, and so on. And planters. What should they do?
Yeah, so this is from our end. So we had a little issue in the past where we had some replication of equipment that you have already built. So in this instance where you ended up with multiple pieces of the exact same equipment, that is a little frustrating, I understand. But unfortunately, the best thing for you to do is just go out and delete, remove those multiples and just leave it to the one or two that maybe you have of actual pieces of equipment. But that was on Climate's end. In the past, we did have that a short time where equipment was being duplicated in people's accounts and then ended up with multiple pieces of the same equipment. So unfortunately, you just have to go in and remove those duplicates to kind of clean your list up a little bit.
Excellent. Thank you.
It doesn't affect anything if for some reason you kept them in there and you just kept selecting, one of those as you were going out, everything's going to work still. It's just basically kind of confusing your list up or kind of making more in what you need.
So if I selected, the first planter that was on my list and there are, 4 duplicates, and then the next field or the next day I selected the third one, it's not going to mess up my map. It's just kind of messy in my equipment list.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so just a follow-up to the situation where the iPad wouldn't connect to the FieldView drive. They're giving us information that it had mapped earlier in the day, but then they quit for lunch, took a lunch break, which is nice, and they couldn't get it to connect after lunch. So any additional tips for that individual?
So if it sounds like maybe you couldn't get the Bluetooth back reconnected, the steps that I guess the call out I would have if for some reason we're running into Bluetooth issues or connection after pausing for a short time or even overnight is closing the app out on the iPad, completely going in and into the settings of the actual iPad and forgetting the Bluetooth device. From there, kind of as Tanya's showing us here, hitting that little I next to my devices and hit forget this device. Shut your iPad off, kind of restart it. And then while that's doing that, I would just unhook the drive from the diagnostic port and then plug everything back in, pull everything back up, reconnect it. And a lot of times that'll fix the issues that you have if you are running into some connection issues.
Phil, if I might add, some people may not know how to close out officially out of apps, which is actually just a general good practice on your devices. So if you double click on your device's home button, so I double click, it will show all of the apps that I currently have open and running. And then I just swipe up and that will officially close the cab app like Phil just described. And then I can, after I've forgot my Bluetooth and turned it back on, then I can click again and that reopens the app.
Yeah,
excellent.
That's a good call out.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. That's a good add-on there, Tanya. So folks, we don't have any more questions that have come in today. So thank you very much for joining us for the Getting Ready to Plant webinar. We believe that if you take a look at the items that we presented today, that you will have a smoother start to your planting season when you're trying to capture data with FieldView. I do want to invite you also to take a look at our events.climate.com page. We've added a couple more webinars on applications, so tracking applications with FieldView, and we'll be running those webinars on March 23rd at 9 a.m. Central Time, as well as March 27th at 2 p.m. Central Time. And again, we will post those recordings on our YouTube channel as well. So thank you much for joining us today. We hope that this has been beneficial for you, and we look forward to seeing you on another webinar. And we sincerely hope that you have a smooth and successful planting season.